Usted está siendo observado. Las autoridades han sido notificadas.
Everyone, please join us in a circle. We're so grateful for your being here. And we'd like to join first in a prayerful circle, giving thanks to the indigenous stewards of this land who have given permission and blessing for us to be here today and to stand with the indigenous elders, stewards of the land of Palestine. So if you would like to close your eyes and feel the healing energy of our Mother Earth, feel all the ancestors who have come before us, who have stood in their heart connection, their reciprocity with this land that nurtures us. All our ancestors and our indigenous elders stand with us today. We are here. We call upon all healthcare workers and all people of the world to honor the approximately 900 Palestinian healthcare workers who have been murdered in this genocide, the 179 or more who are currently being held, imprisoned, and tortured. We connect to the healing energy of this land. We send our prayers to our colleagues, to the people of Palestine, to people all over the world who are being harmed by systems of supremacy and violence. I'm going to be quiet, and I want you to join in a moment of healing prayer, whatever that means to you. We speak from our hearts, we see from our hearts, we speak the truth about healing and justice. Feel your connection to your purpose and to what the land and the people are calling us, all living beings are calling us to do on behalf of all life. We'll stand in silence for a moment.
Thank you all so much for coming today. It's an enormous privilege to be here with you. We wanted to affirm the values that have brought us together. This is a space that will not tolerate any forms of hate speech, and y'all are welcome to even come in a bit more if you prefer. In our gathering to speak up about the genocide in Palestine, we cannot forget about the ongoing genocides in Sudan, in Tigray, in the DRC, genocides of the past and those ongoing in the present. These are not aberrations, but features of the same system that represses us now. We stand for the liberation of all oppressed peoples and recognize our duty as healthcare professionals to speak out for the health of all. For those interested in learning more, we're passing out our QR code with a petition in support of our beloved faculty member, Ms. Denise Caramagno. Today we're joined by various others who will share updates on Palestine and stories about UCSF's repression of our advocacy. We will reaffirm our commitment to health for all, but to start, we'd like to honor and memorialize our lost healthcare workers in Palestine and our unlawfully detained healthcare workers in Palestine. And we're going to soon be reading out names of those who have been unlawfully detained or lost, doctors, nurses, and dentists in Palestine. Dr. Muhammad Abu Salmiya, Dr. Akram Hussein, Dr. Akram Abu Adeh, Dr. Iyad Abed, Dr. Munir Lufti Muhammad Al-Shakhrit, Dr. Yusuf Bara'at, Dr. Saleh Mahmoud, Dr. Muhammad Jamil Jabr Al-Abu Jbain, Dr. Ahmed Abu Aita, Dr. Mustafa Juda,
Dr. Farouk Ashur, Dr. Muhammad Awadat, Dr. Saeed Mohammed Abdul Fattah Abu El-Jizyin, Dr. Iyad Ahmed Mohammed Al-Rantisi, Dr. Hussam Mohammed Ibrahim Juda, Dr. Sabr Ilyan, Dr. Ala Aid in Shalade, Dr. Wadi Fayez Qasim, Dr. Ahmed Al-Khalut, Dr. Khalid Hamouda, Dr. Ahmed Mina. Dr. Adnan Al-Burj, Dr. Mohammed Al-Ran, Dr. Khalid Siam, Dr. Aysar Al-Barghouthi, Dr. Khalid Al-Kharouf, Dr. Mohammed Khalid Al-Jardisawi, Dr. Saeed Abdul Rahman Maroof, Dr. Samir Saleh Abu Dayyah, Dr. Haidar Al-Qidra, Dr. Jamal Ayad, Dr. Nafiz Al-Kirim, Dr. Bassam Miqdad, Dr. Haytham Ahmed, Dr. Ahmed Musa, Dr. Ghassan Abu Zuhri, Dr. Nahid Abu Taima, Dr. Ahmed Abdul Rahim Barah Al-Sumaira, Dr. Ala Atwa Raghib Barbakh, Dr. Atif Al-Food, Dr. Naj Al-Hajj, Dr. Mahmoud Abu Shihada, Dr. Mus'ab Fakhri Saman, Dr. Hamza Abu Sabah, Dr. Ahmed Al-Zumairi, Dr. Ayub Adnan Salim Abu Nimr, Dr. Mahmoud Saeed Abdul Hayy Fayyad, Dr. Raid Yaqub Salam Mahdi, Dr. Mustafa Jawad Afayya Siyam, Dr. Isam Hassan Salman Ridwan, Dr. Khalid Abdul Aziz Abdullah Siyam, Dr. Iyas Adil Ahmed Al-Bursh, Dr. Murad Walid Murad Al-Kufa, Dr. Mu'nis Rajab Muhaisin, Dr. Basim Ramadan Salim Al-Masri, Dr. Kamal Radi Muhammad Kishko, Dr. Nihad Saeed Musa Abid, Dr. Yahya Mustafa Saeed Al-Masri, Dr. Auni Mahmoud Rabah Jiwana, Dr. Muhammad Ghanim, Dr. Jihad Al-Juaidi, Dr. Ahmed Al-Akhras, Dr. Wasim Wail Mahani.
At this point, in the list of those unlawfully detained, we're not even halfway through. But for anyone who'd like to offer the rose in vigil and in mourning to the bear, you're welcome to, and to give a silent prayer as we finish some more of the names. Dr. Amar Fawzi Al-Jadba, Dr. Bara Muslim, Dr. Anwar Al-Sheikh Khalil, Dr. Khalid Abdul Karim Al-Sair, Dr. Mahmoud Al-Shami, Dr. Aysam Hassan Abu Ajwa, Dr. Samar Al-Ghula, Dr. Suhail Suleiman Abu Salama Abu Mustafa, Dr. Mahmoud Al-Halaq, Dr. Ahmed Wa'il Abu Sabah, Dr. Omar Muhammad Ismail Qudayh, Dr. Haytham Kullab, Dr. Ashur Abed Awad Ashur, Dr. Anas Hanna. Were 77 names of over 200 that Health Workers Watch Palestine has documented as being unlawfully detained in Gaza, doing their jobs, protecting the health of their community, much like we do today. We have a line of speakers today, and we're going to start by updating on the situation in Palestine by the Palestinian Youth Movement, a representative. And furthermore, I'd like to just say to everyone again, we have media present today. For those who are camera shy, please participate in whichever way you feel is best for you. So our next speaker, I'd like to invite you up.
Hi everyone, my name is Sada. I use she, her pronouns. I am a hematology oncology clinical pharmacist here at UCSF, and I speak to you today as a Palestinian who was really excited to come to UCSF for my residency training years ago, and I got hired on, and I now stand before you years later, really ashamed and embarrassed to be working here, to be working at a place that not only doesn't speak up against the genocide and speak for the healthcare workers that are going through a lot in Palestine, but also for their own employees and own workers here who are experiencing lots of things that I don't really want to go into. But I was tasked today with grounding us all in the commitment of our people to life, land, and liberation. Just as our people continue to stay committed, so must we here in diaspora and all around the world. We know that this October is going to mark 1 year of genocide, and in the span of 1 year, the Gaza Health Ministry has released the names of over 40,000 martyrs, with updated projections estimating over 189,000 martyrs. I don't think I need to spew facts. I think we've gotten to a point where you can't really deny the genocide. And we know that at this point in time, with the funding and the backing of the United States, Israel has taken the most extreme of measures, revealing to the world the extent that it's willing to go to project its colonial state. And it's clearly in an existential crisis. Israel is absolutely in a crisis. And so from Gaza to Jenin to the Bay Area and beyond, we as Palestinians and people of conscience have a role to play in our struggle. I think people always want to say there's two sides, you know, to what's happening, etc. But really, the two sides are either that you're on the side of genocide or that you're on the side of ending genocide. There's no nuance, there's no neutrality, there's no additional context needed. There's only complicity in genocide and ending genocide, and this is clear. And as healthcare professionals, we want to make sure that we are clear about that demand and about that distinction. I also want to say that when we learn and study the history and when we look at atrocities of the past, we always wonder, how are things allowed to go on for so long? And we are in one of those moments right now. We have a moral obligation as healthcare professionals, as healthcare workers, to speak up, because it's a moral duty to demand a complete ceasefire and an end to the genocide in Gaza. We will not wait around for this genocide to end. We must honor our martyrs and fight like hell for the living. We must continue to fight until a ceasefire, liberation, and return. That's all really I want to say. I organized with the Palestinian Youth Movement. I've been an organizer for 10 years. I've been in the Bay Area for almost 4 years. And if you aren't already plugged in to Students for Justice in Palestine at UCSF or any other organization or group of people that are doing good work, now is the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we move into our next very important speaker, I wanted to mention some words, especially for those who are new into our community. My name again is Kamel Aweda. I'm a third-year medical student here. And for the last 11 months, courageous healthcare workers at UCSF have advocated for the health justice of Palestinians who are facing an ongoing genocide. Many of us were drawn to this university because of its image as a social justice bastion. It was our hope that UCSF would engage in the ongoing genocide in a principled manner, much like they did with their myriad medical aid drives and public outreaches of support for the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. I'd like to share with you how the UCSF administration has responded to thus far. We began with letters, hundreds of students and faculty detailing our responsibility to speak against the systematic destruction of healthcare in Palestine. UCSF administration began with ignoring us. Hundreds and hundreds of us mobilized in peaceful demonstrations asking UCSF to respond to the genocide in line with the World Health Organization, which called for an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of a corridor for humanitarian aid for 10 or 11 months at this point. UCSF administration began to discredit our work as abhorrent and shocking and refused to honor our principles. Medical residents spoke of the moral imperative to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Gaining widespread support on social media, UCSF responded with a cease and desist letter. And the list of repression we face in our advocacy for human rights is long at UCSF, reflecting a pattern of violating our constitutional rights to free speech at a public university. Staff have been told to remove solidarity symbols or else face disciplinary action. Faculty with decades-long history in health justice have been barred from mentioning Gaza in their talks or giving lectures altogether. Students have existed every day in an environment of fear, knowing our administrators are crafting policies to limit and punish our freedom of expression on campus. And now, Ms. Denise Caramagno, our brilliant and beloved care advocacy director, for nearly 10 years has been fired because of her commitment to anti-oppressive work. Thank you all so much.
Hello. I'm speaking to you from the sidewalk because I'm prohibited from stepping on UCSF property. My name's Denise Caramagno. I use she, her pronouns, and I was your care advocate. So the care program serves people who experience sexual assault, interpersonal violence, discrimination, harassment, and it came about as a direct result of student protest and student activism. So I came to this campus to establish that program because the students demanded it. So I know who I worked for, I know who I was accountable to, the students. UCSF is a public institution. And you've heard me say this before, it's your school. No one has more right to this space than you do. There are, however, people who think that they can co-opt this institution with their money and their power. And UCSF isn't unique in this. DEI is being co-opted and weaponized across the country as white people want to silence the voices of people of color. My entire 30-year career has been about preventing and addressing violence. Part of my job at UCSF was violence prevention education. And you know that the way that we prevent violence is to address and dismantle those systems of oppression: racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, ableism, colonialism. So recently I spoke out in support of my Black and brown colleagues as they spoke out against the genocide of Black and brown people. And UCSF tried to silence me. They told me to be quiet. I continued to support my colleagues, and so now I'm being fired. And but do you know who's fired the most here at this institution, like disproportionately by a landslide? I'll give you a hint, it's not white people. Black people are fired here disproportionately, and all of these systems are connected, so we have to be connected. So I'm sad to lose my job supporting survivors, but I have no regrets. As a mother and as an advocate, I had to follow my conscience. Even when it's a scary thing to do, we have to do what's right. And I had to try to model the integrity that I've tried to instill in my children. So we have to stand up for each other, even when it's hard and scary. We have to be united in our struggles against these systems of supremacy. There's no other way to achieve justice, and there will never be peace without justice.
Yes.
We're healers, we're healthcare workers, we're future healthcare workers, we're academics. As such, we have an ethical responsibility to call out genocide. Genocide is the most extreme form of racism. We cannot be silent. What greater healthcare crisis have we witnessed in our lifetimes than the systematic dismantling of the healthcare system in Palestine? And we can fight this fight right here, right now, on this lonely land. We can use our voices, our experience, our academic expertise, and our platforms. I want to give a special thanks to the Jewish allies. I'm so grateful for you. I know this is a very hostile environment for you all, and I thank you for your commitment and your courage. Since UCSF decided to fire me, I've been hearing from people all over the world, and what they tell me is that we are on the right side of history. When has a nationwide student movement ever been wrong? I stand with y'all. I stand with the students. You make me hopeful for our future. Thank you for being here. Free Palestine.
There are flowers being distributed, so you can offer a silent prayer to the bear in memory of our healthcare worker colleagues who have been killed or unlawfully detained in Palestine for taking care of the health of their people. At this point, I'd like to move on to our next speaker, someone who knows Denise personally, to see if they are here in attendance at the moment. Perfect. And you are more than welcome to come. Thank you so much for joining us.
My name is Norman Archer, and I'm a recent graduate of UCSF School of Medicine, and I'm currently a family medicine physician resident at San Francisco General Hospital. When I was a medical student here, I was part of the Care Ambassador program. For which those of you who don't know, it's a program and student-led initiative meant to bridge the care office with students and give them resources. And it was through being a Care Ambassador that I got to know Denise. I've learned so much from Denise. She's taught me about trauma-informed communication, bystander intervention, and how to support and empower survivors of interpersonal violence. I know Denise to have a keen sense of justice that reflects her decades of working with the communities that she wants to serve. She's been consistently dedicated to the students here on this campus, and she's a fierce ally to marginalized communities of all different kinds of identities. She's one of the most kind and thoughtful people that we have had at our university, and this university has really benefited from her expertise in violence prevention. I want to call out how her wrongful and punitive termination actually leaves students without a supportive and knowledgeable and confidential, trusted resource to go to. We are now without one of the most qualified people to help students on this campus. And I think that it sends a message to students on this campus that it's not a safe space to speak up against violence. It's not a safe space to speak up against health disparities, and it's not a safe space to speak up against genocide. Advocacy should be uplifted on this campus, not punished. Denise must be restored to her position, and Palestine must be free. Thank you so much, and thank you, Denise.
What is the state of our university if we, as healthcare workers, cannot speak out against genocide? How far will this repression go if we don't speak up in this moment? I'd like to invite our next speaker, Dan, a medical student with JVP.
Thanks, everyone. So my name is Daniel. Use he and they pronouns, and I'm a medical student representing the Jewish Voice for Peace at UCSF. As others here, I have felt overwhelmed by Israel's violence against Palestinians in the past 11 months and over the past 76 years. This violence is a deep wound to our collective moral conscience. I'm here as a proud Jewish person to remind all of us that criticizing Israel and its attempts to eliminate and expel the Palestinian people is not anti-Semitic. Jews like myself, who are horrified by the oppression occurring in Gaza, represent a significant portion of the Jewish community at UCSF, in the Bay Area, and in the world. I'd also like to talk about the concept of Jewish safety. Many Israelis and other people who align with Zionism claim that advocating for the liberation of Palestinians somehow diminishes the safety of the Jewish people. I believe that we as Jews do not need to build walls and oppress others to be safe. I look around to our beautiful community here, diverse and full of love all around us. Our safety is through solidarity across ethnic and religious lines. Look at the beautiful space we've been able to build just right here. I'd also like to talk about how, like many of my Jewish colleagues, I have family who survived the Holocaust. We grew up with the adage, never again. For the survivors of genocide, never again must mean never again for anyone. I feel sickened that members of my community, my Jewish community, are perpetrating this violence. Israel has killed well over 40,000 people in Gaza since October 7th, and 900 of those healthcare workers. And the Lancet recently estimated that the total death toll will rise to 186,000 by the time the dust settles. These are unfathomable numbers, and we must say the words that UCSF leadership refuses to. This is genocide. And finally, our university leadership has used intimidation and retaliation to try to silence us. They have made defamatory and false comments about the director of our care program, Denise. Denise advocates for all students, staff, and faculty harmed by sexual harassment, violence, and oppression, including some of my best friends who have survived rape. I'm sharing this story with their permission. Multiple students have currently ongoing legal cases who were receiving help from Denise, who served as the only sexual assault advocate for all 35,000 UCSF affiliates. The school did not notify any of Denise's clients that she was fired, and students were grateful that for the FJP press release, because that is how many of my peers found out that she was fired. Denise upholds the belief that oppression of any one group facilitates oppression of other marginalized peoples. Her integrity and courage are an inspiration to us all. Regardless of how UCSF tries to silence us, our strength is in our collective voice. Together, we are united in the struggle for a free Palestine right now. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. For those who may have just joined us, a couple housekeeping things. Anyone who would like to offer a silent prayer, I'm moving some flowers here. You're welcome to take one, and I'll invite you in. And you can always deposit the flower at the bear. After your prayer for the healthcare workers of Gaza, who have been unlawfully detained and killed in their efforts to take care of their community. Some more housekeeping things. We have QR codes. There's two purposes of them if you scan them. You can sign up for Students in Justice in Palestine at UCSF, the Jewish Voice for Peace at UCSF, or the Faculty and Staff for Justice in Palestine at UCSF. We've also attached an Action Network petition in defense of Denise and her unjust termination. I'd like to invite our next speaker, Rachel Letterman, a civil rights attorney, to say some words.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rachel Letterman. I'm a senior counsel with the Center for Protest Law and Litigation. Denise Caramagno is being fired for speaking out against a repressive social media attack on health justice advocate, UCSF Professor of Medicine, Dr. Rupa Maria. On January 25th, I sent UCSF a public records request seeking communications about a retaliatory post that it shared across multiple UCSF platforms related to Dr. Maria's advocacy against the genocide in Palestine. State Senator Scott Wiener then characterized Dr. Maria's speech as anti-Semitic, and UCSF echoed this accusation that her statements were baseless and quote-unquote anti-Semitic. The Canary mission was tagged, and Dr. Maria was doxxed and framed as a racist. It turns out that UCSF's largest donor is the Diller Foundation, which supports the Canary mission and whose for-profit real estate company, the Prometheus Group, supports Senator Wiener. So we're seeking documents to understand this relationship between these forces and the university in repressing Dr. Maria, a known advocate for health justice. Although the university initially promised to produce records to me within 8 weeks, months went by and no records were produced. My follow-up emails were completely ignored. So we had no choice but to go to court to enforce UCSF's clear obligation to comply with the California Public Records Act and the California Constitution. Once the court forces UCSF to produce the records, they may shed more light on its vendetta against pro-Palestine students, faculty, and staff. Advocacy for Palestine and against Zionism is a political ideology and is not anti-Semitic. We have the constitutional right to speak out against oppression and genocide. Despite UC's system-wide efforts to stamp out our movement, we can stand up against them in the streets and in the courts. As a civil rights lawyer and as a Jew, I'm proud to stand with all of you healthcare workers who oppose genocide and uphold the value of all people, especially Palestinians. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words. To our next speaker, Dr. Rupa Maria, who's been defending Palestinian lives and defending all lives for the past decades-long career in health justice. Rupa, you're welcome to come up.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just want to ground myself by thanking the ancestors for being with us, the ancestors of this land who know this repression, the ancestors of my own that know this repression from Punjab, the ancestors of so many of you I see here, so many diasporic people are here because of this same repression. It's not that it ever ended or got better, it just shifted focus, and it will continue to do so until we end it. And we can only end it collectively. My name is Rupa Maria, and I never even met Denise until I found out that she was being targeted because she stuck up for me. Denise got fired for sticking up for me. This is an example of white allyship. This is an example of radical solidarity. This is the example of what we need to take down a system that will repress Jewish people in Germany, Palestinian people in their homeland, Ohlone people right here, black and brown people here, black people around the world. This is a sickness, this is a mind virus that must be addressed holistically and together. Our obligation as healthcare workers is to speak out without fear and without favor when we see wide-scale oppression that threatens the health of our communities. When we are silent or silenced in these circumstances, people die needlessly. When we saw our colleagues in Gaza systematically targeted with the destruction of an entire healthcare infrastructure with the explicit purpose of hastening the erasure of an entire people from their homeland, we were obligated to speak up. And it has been an affront to our professionalism and to our duty to care to be subjected to racist repression and maligned as racist in the process. I am grateful for the advocacy of my white sister, Denise Caramagno, who stood up for my right to express myself in my area of expertise, which is social determinants of health, which is the health impacts of colonialism, which is racism and public health. That's what I study, that's what I know, that's what I do. And she was defamed and now fired as a consequence. It is critical that we make the connections about how power harms us and to make the correct diagnosis so we can act to stop the harm. Because an injury to one of us is ultimately an injury to all of us. We speak for Palestinians as we have spoken and will continue to speak up for all groups confronting oppression. Black and brown people encountering police violence, indigenous people facing racist structures and policy here in their homelands, poor people facing dehumanizing sweeps and criminalizations, Governor Newsom throwing wheelchairs into the trash. Healthcare workers must feel free to speak whenever we see violent oppression in our communities, because this has long-standing and rippling effects on everybody's health. When our speech is muzzled, as it is here, it prevents us from doing our duty to serve the public good and to uplift the health of all. We will not be silent as this genocide rages in Palestine. Thank you.
I wanted to say, despite their tactics of repression and intimidation, like Rupa said, we will not stay silent. We draw from our oath in which new medical students at UCSF declare, I will oppose policies in breach of human rights and will not participate in them. UCSF, we are calling on you to honor the oath that you've shattered. And to our community who are here today, we thank you for joining us in this oath. Our next speaker is an academic researcher at UCSF, who is also a member of PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and also UAW, the union for workers, one of the unions for workers here at UCSF.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you and good afternoon. My name is Toss. I'm an academic researcher at Mission Bay, an aspiring healthcare worker, a member of UAW 4811, and a voice for those who resist here at the UC. On May 18th, 2024, Chancellor Hawgood ordered the violent raid and dismantling of UCSF Free Palestine encampment, a non-violent protest calling for divestment from the occupation and genocide of Palestinians. This came after repressive actions like militarizing our campus with armed officers, confiscating student property, and installing military-grade surveillance equipment on campus. Following this, the violent repression at UCLA, UCI, and UCSD as well, 48,000 members across the state at UAW 4811 voted to go on strike. The UC has a long history of brutalizing student protesters, from the Vietnam War to anti-apartheid and South Africa demonstrations, and now again with the fight for Palestinian liberation. The UC boasts about their free speech movement, yet today they crush our voices when we raise them for Palestine. Shame. UAW 4811's unfair labor practice strike aim to defend pro-Palestine free speech and workers' rights to dignified expression. So the UC subverted California labor law twice and ultimately court-shopped for the most conservative judge in the state to suppress us. Their latest expressive activities policy, which also prohibits masking on campus, is just another tactic. They've used every trick in the book: intimidation, surveillance, repression, and violence, all because we demand they cut ties with genocide. Universities and graduate schools should be the place of free thought, where students lead the charge for justice. But how can we call this place a place of learning when students are beaten, surveilled, and silenced for standing against war crimes? How can UC claim to care about communities when it invests in occupation and destruction abroad, while here at home, workers are fighting for healthcare, jobs, and housing? Our demand is simple: reinvest in students, patients, workers, and communities, not occupation and genocide of the Palestinian people. Our strike has been paused. Denise is being fired, but our fight is far from over. The UC is terrified because we've exposed them for what they are: complicit in injustice. Every one of us here must organize, expand our movement, and build our power. We must throw ourselves into this work no matter how hard, no matter what threats we face, because we have the power to help see a free Palestine. Thank you.
Our closing speaker, a medical student at UCSF who's representing Students in Justice for Palestine.
As the death toll rises on the ground, the efforts of those carrying out this genocide also rises. The efforts of those aiding and abetting this genocide also rises. The efforts of those who stand by silently and who suppress the voices of courage and conscience also rises. And so must we continue to rise. This repression is not new here in the United States. It is as old as the founding of this nation. It has moved as different groups have been targeted and harmed. And this repression has been intensifying in alarming ways. But that is the nature of falsehood. It is desperate in the face of truth. And like all falsehood, it eventually crumbles in the face of our collective humanity. Our presence here is a testament to that fact. And as we navigate all of these new barriers and policies aimed at shutting us down, shutting down our voices of truth, we turn to each other for guidance and support. We stand by our beloved colleague and comrade, Denise Caramagno, whose courage and conscience is an inspiration to us all, who was the first UC employee fired for speaking for the truth. We stand by all of our comrades, taking the brunt of this crackdown at all levels. Amidst all of this, the betrayal of the healthcare oath, the one that binds us together as students and trainees and clinicians, the one that we took to initiate this journey, is what rings the loudest. If we are waiting for the right moment to speak up, that moment has been long overdue. As stewards of health and healing, amidst the intimidation, we remain as clear-sighted and committed as ever to our mission. We must affirm the validity of Palestinian lives, as we have for every marginalized and oppressed community. We must make absolutely clear our outrage at the targeted destruction of human life, of health infrastructure, our healthcare colleagues, the 179 detained and martyred healthcare workers in Gaza. And so we continue to rise to the occasion. Our student organization has only been recognized officially for 1 month, We have been organizing here since October, and many others here before us. The fact that we are still here is horrendous and beautiful. The coalition that has arisen in the face of death and destruction is beautiful to behold and to experience. But the fact that our brethren still remain under the boot of genocide, occupation, and apartheid is horrendous. You can make as many policies as you want. You can deploy as many officers as you want. You can tarnish our image, but that does not diminish the validity of this cause or our united, unrelenting presence at this campus. Our message is as clear as the day we walked out 11 months ago. We will not remain silent as our brethren are extinguished in front of our eyes. When others turn away, we bear witness. When others bury their names under the rug, we honor their names and we lift their mention. When others are silent, we speak. We will not allow the darkness of oppression to enshroud the light of truth. Health for all means health for all. Thank you.
We did get word that another union here, in addition to UAW 48111, UPTE, has some great news to share with our community, and I'd like to pass it on.
Yes, I'm a member of UPTE, Members for Palestine. UPTE represents 17,000 workers through UC. UPTE Members for Palestine was born out of the necessity because in June 2021, through the Peace and Social Justice Committee, we passed a resolution through the Executive Board in solidarity with Palestine. However, after new leadership came upon, this resolution was taken off of the website, and since then there's been a prioritization of bargaining and contract negotiations in spite of the genocide that's going on. There was a statement made regarding the genocide, yes, but this resolution was never placed back onto our website. So UPTE Members for Palestine has formed, and we're organizing a Labor for Palestine event at our convention that we're having. UPTE is having its convention in San Diego on September 28th and 29th. And we're organizing a Labor for Palestine event meeting on the 27th, Friday, in San Diego at the Peace Resource Center, with the participation of UAW as well as other unions as well. And I just would like to let people know that there has been a lot of internal struggle going on within our own unions, within many, what's called the union bureaucracy. And in fact, we've had to deal with the AFL-CIO's cancellation of any kind of resolutions that we wanted to present to the Labor Council. And just for your information, UCSF thinks that its new policies of limited time and space and all that kind of stuff complies with any kind of First Amendment. I wonder how many of us know that we didn't follow any rules, any of these pre-established rules when we fought for our First Amendment rights in UC Berkeley in the 1960s. Women did not follow any rules when they won the right to vote in 1920s. Black people did not follow any rules when they fought against slavery. So all these rules that UC is trying to impose upon us of 10-day advance notice and all that kind of, I don't want to use a bad word on this solemn day, but it's bull. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your